In the vast halls of the Salvoran Palace, Queen Silnera sat on her high throne, her silver eyes fixed on a giant window that looked out over the Empire's vast capital. The room was quiet and filled with the soft hum of distant machines. Silnera was known for her strength and wisdom. For many years, her people had lived in peace and order under her firm rule. Yet, on this day, a small seed of doubt began to grow in her mind. For as long as anyone could remember, legends had been told about human warriors. Many alien worlds had spread these stories like wildfire. They spoke of brave humans with unmatched courage and clever minds. But to Queen Silnera, these were nothing more than old fables meant to inspire hope in the hearts of oppressed beings. In her eyes, humans were fragile and unworthy of the battles they were said to have fought. She believed that no human could ever challenge the power of her empire. One morning, as she reviewed reports from her generals, a messenger entered the room with a solemn expression. He carried a data crystal that contained a report from the front lines of a new mission. The report told of a remote planet that had long been rumored to be home to a small group of human settlers. The report mentioned unusual activity and hints of resistance. Silnera listened as the messenger spoke in a clear, calm tone. "Your Majesty, our forces have landed on the planet Teranova. The inhabitants here have long been rumored to be human. We expected an easy conquest, yet our initial surveys show signs of strong defense. There is a report of a single warrior moving like a shadow through our ranks." Her eyes narrowed as she listened. The idea of one warrior causing trouble did not seem possible to her. She had heard the legends and dismissed them. Still, something in the messenger's tone made her pause. With a graceful nod, she said, "Thank you. Continue with the mission. Keep me updated." Even as she spoke, the seed of doubt in her mind grew larger. Queen Silnera walked slowly down the long marble corridor of her palace. Her footsteps echoed, as if they were speaking of the immense responsibility she carried. She passed by portraits of past rulers and mighty heroes of the Empire, all of whom had overcome many challenges. Yet even among these great figures, she had never known of a single human who had ever made a mark on her vast empire. In her mind, humans were simply a myth. In her private study, she sat at a large desk and studied a holographic map of Teranova. The map showed a small planet, green and blue, orbiting a distant star. There was a red dot that marked the place where the report had been sent from. She touched the dot lightly, as if testing the reality of the report. Could it be, she whispered to herself, that a single human might be enough to change the tide of this mission? The thought was both absurd and intriguing. The Queen recalled her childhood, filled with stories of mighty warriors who defeated their enemies with strength and determination. But these stories had always been about her own people or those from distant galaxies known for their fierceness. Humans, on the other hand, were said to be fragile and short-lived. Yet, legends sometimes hide a spark of truth among the embers of fantasy. Silnera felt that perhaps she had been too hasty in dismissing these tales. As the day went on, more messages came in from the front. The initial skirmishes on Teranova had escalated into a series of small but stubborn resistances. There were whispers among her commanders about a lone fighter who could appear and vanish without a trace. The warrior was said to be calm and collected, his every move calculated and precise. No matter how many soldiers were sent after him, he always found a way to stay one step ahead. With each report, Queen Silnera's curiosity deepened. She began to imagine what this warrior might be like. Was he truly human? And if so, how could one mortal man defy the might of her empire? These questions echoed in her mind as she prepared for a journey of her own, a journey to see the truth for herself. In a grand chamber filled with maps and star charts, she summoned her most trusted advisors. They gathered around a large table, and the Queen spoke in a calm but determined voice. "We have always believed that our strength comes from our numbers and our technology. Yet we now face a challenge that seems to defy these principles. I want more information on this warrior. I want a plan that will allow me to see him in action." Her advisors exchanged nervous glances, but they knew better than to question her orders. They began to outline a strategy that would send a small elite unit to gather more details. Meanwhile, on Teranova, the first hints of human resilience were being written in the stars. The planet's surface, dotted with ancient ruins and modern settlements, was alive with energy. The humans had built their homes in the shadows of nature, blending old ways with new technology. Among them, the legendary warrior moved quietly, helping his people and defending their freedom without seeking glory. His actions were guided by honor and a deep love for his kind. Back in the palace, Queen Silnera felt a mix of skepticism and fascination. The idea of a single human, with nothing but his own courage and skill, standing against the might of her empire was both laughable and deeply intriguing. She decided that once her new unit returned with detailed accounts, she would consider meeting this mysterious figure face to face. The sun began to set over the empire, casting long shadows across the palace gardens. The queen stepped out onto a balcony, watching the light fade away. In that moment, her mind wandered to the possibilities. She thought of a time when legends might be more than stories, when the underdog could truly inspire change. For now, though, she was the ruler of a mighty empire, and every decision she made would shape the future of many worlds. Queen Silnera's doubt had grown into a silent question. Could this lone human be the spark that ignited a revolution? With her heart steeled by both pride and a cautious curiosity, she vowed to see the truth for herself. The battle for Teranova was only just beginning, and in the depths of her heart, she sensed that the outcome might be far more unpredictable than anyone had ever imagined. In the quiet of the night, as the stars began to fill the sky, Queen Silnera made her decision. She would not simply dismiss these tales as legends any longer. Instead, she would seek out the truth and confront the mystery of the human warrior. Little did she know, this decision would soon set her on a path that could change the course of her empire forever. On the distant world of Teranova, the day began with a soft light as the twin suns rose slowly over the horizon. The land was calm at first, with gentle winds stirring the tall grasses and the soft hum of distant creatures waking up. Yet, beneath this peaceful scene, there was a growing tension. The presence of the Salvoran Empire's forces had disturbed the quiet life of the planet. As the alien soldiers moved in well-organized lines, their steps careful and precise, the air began to fill with the sound of mechanical devices and distant commands. The soldiers advanced along carefully planned routes, believing that their superior training and advanced equipment would quickly bring the human settlements to submission. They were confident and proud, having conquered many worlds before. But on Teranova, something unexpected was happening. As the soldiers moved through the winding roads and shadowed forests, small signs of resistance began to appear. A simple marker on a tree here, a trail of footprints there, subtle hints that someone was watching them. There was no loud protest or bold declaration. The resistance was quiet, like a whisper among the leaves. In a hidden clearing, a group of local human settlers gathered. They were simple people, living in small houses made of stone and wood. Their lives were built on hope and hard work, and they valued freedom above all else. Among them was a young woman who cared for the elderly and helped the children learn. Their community was peaceful, yet the memory of legends about brave human warriors gave them strength. They spoke quietly of a lone fighter who had come before them, a man who moved with the grace of a shadow and the wisdom of a true guardian. At the heart of this quiet resistance was Captain Elias Voss, the warrior whose actions had become the subject of many whispered tales. Elias was a man of simple means, dressed in worn armor that had seen many long days under the open sky. He did not seek power or fame, but his heart burned with the desire to protect his people. As he moved silently among the trees and rocky paths, he watched the advancing soldiers with careful eyes. Every step he took was measured and thoughtful, and he had learned to use the land to his advantage. The soldiers of the Empire, confident in their numbers, did not expect a challenge from such a small band of people. They marched forward, alert but unaware of the hidden presence that had been watching them from the shadows. Then, without warning, the quiet morning was filled with confusion. One of the patrols suddenly found that their communication device had gone silent. Another group reported that the path they had carefully mapped out seemed to change, as if the ground itself were leading them astray. The orderly progression of the alien forces began to waver. Elias watched from behind a large rock as a small group of soldiers gathered in a clearing. He saw their leader pause and look around with suspicion. The leader spoke in a clear voice. "Find out who is here and why our path is not as clear as planned." His words were calm, yet there was a hint of concern. The soldiers split into smaller teams, moving carefully to search the area. As they did, Elias used their confusion to slip away silently. The human warrior moved like a soft breeze through the trees. He knew every rock, every hidden path, and every whisper of the wind in the forest. His careful planning allowed him to stay one step ahead of the alien patrols. In his mind, each movement was part of a greater plan to keep his people safe and to challenge the might of an empire that thought it could easily rule Teranova. With each small act of misdirection, he inspired hope in the hearts of those who believed in the legends of the human spirit. Back at a temporary command post, a young lieutenant of the Empire named Zarek studied the reports coming in from the field. He was responsible for keeping track of every movement and every change on Teranova. The reports were puzzling. There were notes of strange disturbances and unexplained delays. Zarek felt a chill as he read about a mysterious figure who seemed to move like a shadow and leave no trace. Although he had been raised to trust the strength of the Empire, he could not ignore the unusual details that had begun to fill the daily reports. Meanwhile, the battle was awakening in its own quiet way. In small villages scattered across Teranova, families huddled together as they heard the distant sounds of the alien machines. They listened intently for any sign of hope. In one village, an old storyteller began to recount the ancient tales of brave warriors who had fought for freedom long ago. His voice was soft yet determined, and even the youngest children could feel the courage in his words. The people, though fearful, began to find comfort in these stories, hoping that one day a new legend would be born from their struggles. On the field, the alien soldiers regrouped after their initial confusion. Their commander, a tall figure with a calm demeanor, ordered them to tighten their formation and re-establish control over the area. He believed that the strange events were merely the result of local tricks and misdirection. Yet, as he looked out over the forest, he could not shake the feeling that there was something different on Teranova, a subtle spark of resistance that was hard to define but impossible to ignore. As the day progressed, the encounter between the alien forces and the hidden human presence grew more intense. The human fighter, Captain Elias Voss, continued his careful work. He guided small groups of settlers to safe places and ensured that the paths the aliens followed would lead them in circles. His clever use of simple tricks and his deep understanding of the land allowed him to slow down the progress of the Empire's advance. Every small act of cleverness was a message. The human spirit was not easily broken. The once calm morning had transformed into a stage where the quiet determination of a few could challenge the overwhelming force of an empire. The battlefield, though not filled with loud clashes or harsh words, was alive with the energy of a struggle for freedom. Each moment brought a new test of skill and courage, as both sides adjusted to the unexpected turn of events. In the midst of these unfolding events, the voice of Teranova began to rise, a soft, steady declaration that even in the face of great power, hope could be found in the resilience of the human heart. And as the alien soldiers moved cautiously through the land, unaware of the true depth of the resistance, the legend of the human warrior grew ever stronger in the minds of all who believed in the promise of a brighter future. Captain Elias Voss moved silently through the dense forest of Teranova as the day wore on. He was known to few and seen by even fewer. To many, he was just a myth, a shadow in the dark who kept the hope of his people alive. In reality, Elias was a dedicated guardian whose every move was measured and purposeful. His worn armor told the story of many battles, each mark a memory of a day spent defending his home. Earlier that morning, small groups of alien soldiers had patrolled the edges of a human settlement. They moved with confidence, expecting an easy victory over a weak enemy. Instead, they found themselves lost in a maze of tangled vines, overgrown paths, and carefully laid traps. It was not by chance that these soldiers were led astray. Elias had spent many hours studying the land. He knew the hidden trails, the soft ground that could cover his tracks, and the secret clearings where he could watch the enemy without being seen. As he moved from one cover to another, Elias paused to observe a patrol from a safe distance. The aliens communicated in short, clipped phrases, their voices low and serious. He listened carefully to their words, learning the rhythm of their commands and the structure of their search patterns. With each passing moment, he grew more confident that his careful planning would allow him to continue his mission without being caught. Elias's thoughts often went back to his family and friends, the people he had sworn to protect. In his mind, every step he took was not just an act of defiance, but a promise to those who depended on him. He recalled the stories told by the elders of his community. These stories, though old and simple, carried the deep truth of resilience and hope. The legends of past heroes were more than just tales. They were the foundation on which his resolve was built. Later in the day, the atmosphere on the battlefield began to change. The alien forces, once so sure of their power, started to feel a growing unease. Reports of a lone fighter moving with the stealth and cunning of a true guardian reached the higher ranks of the Empire. The soldiers, who had marched in tight formations only hours before, now found themselves questioning every rustle in the undergrowth. Their leader ordered more patrols and stricter measures, but the elusive human fighter seemed to be always one step ahead. Elias did not see his actions as those of a warrior in a great battle. Instead, he saw them as acts of protection and care. He gently guided small groups of settlers from dangerous areas to safe havens hidden among the trees and rocky outcrops. He left subtle signs, small markers that showed a safe path to those who knew where to look. His work was done in silence, without any need for loud proclamations. Every careful move was meant to ensure that his people would live another day, free from the fear of the invaders. At one point, while hiding behind a cluster of large ferns, Elias overheard a conversation between two alien soldiers. They spoke of how strange it was that their usual tactics were failing, and one even mentioned that they had seen the human fighter near the ruined temple on the hill. This temple, long abandoned by the ancient inhabitants of Teranova, had become a secret meeting place for the resistance. Elias had visited it many times, finding solace in its quiet, broken halls and the whispers of history that seemed to echo from its walls. Moved by a desire to learn more about the enemy and improve his own plans, Elias made his way towards the temple. His journey was careful and quiet. He used every trick he knew to avoid detection. When he arrived, he took a moment to catch his breath and study the building. The temple was a relic of a time long past, with faded murals and crumbling columns that told the story of a once great civilization. It was here, in this place of forgotten dreams, that Elias often planned his next move. Inside the cool, dim interior of the temple, Elias found a small space where he could sit and think. The soft light filtering through cracks in the stone seemed to shine on the pages of an old journal he carried with him. In that journal were his thoughts, sketches of maps, and ideas for new traps to slow the enemy's advance. He scribbled a few notes about the alien patrols and the unusual weather on Teranova, which sometimes helped him hide his tracks. Every detail mattered in his fight for freedom. Outside the temple, the sounds of the alien soldiers continued. The Empire's forces were growing restless, and their leaders were beginning to worry. Reports of a phantom fighter were spreading fast. Yet for those who truly understood, Elias was not a phantom at all. He was the embodiment of the human spirit, a quiet, steady flame that burned even in the darkest of times. As the sun began to lower in the sky, casting long shadows across the ancient stone floors, Elias left the temple. He returned to the forest with a renewed sense of purpose. The lessons he had learned from the old walls of the temple would serve him well. Every detail, every observation, would help him protect his people better. In the cool of the evening, the quiet resistance of Teranova was visible in small acts of courage and determination. The legend of the human warrior continued to grow with each careful step he took, each enemy patrol he outwitted, and each hidden safe path he created. Though the alien forces still marched on with confidence, there was an undeniable change in the air, a feeling that the fight was not as one-sided as it had once seemed. Captain Elias Voss continued his journey in silence, knowing that his role was not to seek praise or glory, but to serve as a silent guardian for those who had no other hope. In his heart, he carried the strength of generations, a quiet resolve that no empire could ever break. The Phantom Fighter, a title given by those who did not understand him, was simply a man who believed in the power of hope, determination, and the quiet dignity of his people. Captain Elias Voss moved with deliberate caution as he guided his people through the rugged terrain of Teranova. The morning had given way to a bright afternoon, and the soft light revealed every twist and turn in the forest path. Each step Elias took was carefully planned, as he knew that every misstep could give the alien soldiers a chance to capture him or his people. His worn armor, bearing marks of previous battles, clinked softly with his every move, a quiet reminder of the struggles he had faced before. The alien forces, led by a confident commander, advanced steadily toward the human settlements. They had brought with them advanced technology and powerful vehicles designed to subdue any resistance quickly. The soldiers believed that their overwhelming strength would easily crush any opposition. Yet, they had not counted on facing a single warrior who could turn their tactics against them. As the Empire's forces moved closer, they soon found that their expected easy conquest was met with unexpected challenges. Elias had taken the time to study the habits and routines of the invading soldiers. From his hidden vantage points, he noted the timing of patrols and the signals used by the alien commanders. With these observations, he devised clever plans that turned the landscape into an ally. He used natural features, thick groves of trees, steep slopes, and narrow valleys, to create obstacles that slowed the soldiers' progress. His tactics were not meant to cause harm unnecessarily, but to buy time for his people to escape and hide. On one particularly tense afternoon, as the alien patrols crossed a narrow river, Elias sought his opportunity. The river was shallow in many places, and the water rushed swiftly over smooth stones. Knowing that the soldiers would have difficulty maintaining balance on the slick rocks, he set up simple diversions. He scattered loose stones along the banks, and even arranged fallen branches to create false paths. As a group of soldiers attempted to cross, their footing slipped, and a brief moment of chaos erupted. The aliens struggled to regain control, and in that brief period, a group of settlers managed to move to a safer area. News of this clever act soon reached the human community, where the hope of freedom grew stronger. The simple but effective tactics of Captain Elias Voss began to inspire the people. They saw that even in the face of an overwhelming enemy, a single determined person could create a ripple that spread throughout their lives. In quiet corners of hidden settlements, elders shared the tale of the warrior who turned the enemy's strength into a weakness. Children listened with wide eyes, imagining a man whose courage could outshine the power of an entire empire. At the heart of the struggle, the alien commander grew increasingly frustrated. He had trained his soldiers to rely on superior numbers and advanced equipment. Yet, no matter how many soldiers he deployed, the Phantom Fighter seemed to evade every trap. Determined to capture this elusive warrior, the commander ordered his most skilled units to concentrate on one area, hoping to catch Elias off guard. The soldiers prepared carefully, forming a tight circle around a known path that led to one of the human hideouts. Elias, aware of the possibility of such an ambush, moved slowly along the path under the cover of dense foliage. He paused frequently to listen for the sounds of movement, his senses tuned to every whisper of the wind and rustle of leaves. His heart beat steadily as he recalled the trust his people had placed in him. This was not a fight for conquest. It was a struggle to protect life and maintain hope. Every decision he made was guided by the simple truth that the strength of one could inspire many. As he neared the ambush point, Elias felt the tension in the air. He saw the glint of the alien soldiers' armor in the sunlight and heard their quiet murmurs as they prepared to trap him. Instead of rushing forward, he took a deep breath and scanned the area for natural advantages. There, hidden behind a thick clump of vines, he noticed a narrow gap in the rocky outcrop that could serve as an escape route. With quiet precision, he shifted his course, taking the hidden path instead of the one clearly marked by the enemy. The moment his change in direction was discovered, the soldiers gave chase. Their heavy footsteps pounded the ground, and the commander's voice rang out with orders. But Elias was already moving swiftly along the rocky passage. The gap was narrow, forcing the pursuing soldiers to slow down as they navigated the uneven terrain. One by one, the soldiers fell behind, caught up in the twists and turns of the natural maze. Meanwhile, Elias kept his pace, his mind focused on reaching the safety of the dense forest beyond. After several tense minutes that felt like an eternity, Elias emerged into a clearing bathed in warm, fading light. Behind him, the sound of frustrated shouts from the alien patrols echoed softly through the trees. He paused, taking a moment to catch his breath and appreciate the victory, even if it was small. The clever use of the land had again allowed him to escape the enemy's grasp. In that moment, he thought of the many faces of his people, knowing that each safe step he took was a step toward their freedom. The success of his evasive maneuver boosted the morale of the human resistance. In secret meetings held in quiet barns and hidden cellars, the people discussed the tactics of Captain Elias Voss. They learned that courage was not just the result of overwhelming strength, but the product of careful planning and a clear purpose. His actions served as a powerful lesson. A single determined human could disrupt even the most advanced military strategy when driven by hope and a deep love for their land. The battlefield on Teranova had transformed from a place of simple conflict into a dynamic stage where wit and resilience mattered more than brute force. The Empire's soldiers began to feel a growing uncertainty as their plans unraveled one by one. It became clear that they had underestimated the power of a single human being who refused to surrender without a fight. As the sun set over Teranova, casting long shadows over the land, Captain Elias Voss looked back over the path he had traveled. Every stone he had moved, every trap he had set, and every moment he had spent in silent vigilance had woven together a story of quiet defiance. In the fading light, his silhouette merged with the land, a symbol of hope for those who believed that even in the face of an empire, a single human could make a difference. The tension in the Empire's command center was thick as Queen Silnera sat across from her trusted generals. The room, lined with high stone walls and soft glowing panels, echoed with the calm yet determined voices of the advisors. They had brought fresh reports from Teranova, where the elusive Captain Elias Voss continued to disrupt their operations. Now the Queen decided it was time for a new approach. She planned a direct meeting with the man who had become both a thorn in her side and a symbol of hope for his people. Queen Silnera's mind was filled with questions. How could one human, with so few resources, challenge the might of her well-organized forces? What did he truly seek, and what did he represent? To answer these questions, she arranged for a parley with Captain Elias Voss. Her decision was unusual. Few rulers had ever met their adversaries face to face. Yet she believed that understanding the mind behind the resistance might hold the key to ending this prolonged struggle. A secure location was chosen, a quiet clearing far from the chaos of battle. The area was marked by ancient stone structures and gentle streams, a place that held an air of mystery and calm. Both sides arrived with a mix of caution and curiosity. The alien soldiers formed a respectful distance, keeping their weapons lowered. They had heard of the Queen's reputation for wisdom and had seen in her a ruler who valued strategy over simple force. Captain Elias Voss was the first to step forward. His presence was humble yet confident. He wore his well-worn armor and carried a simple data pad filled with notes and maps of his hidden paths. His eyes, clear and steady, showed no fear. Instead, they revealed a deep understanding of his purpose and a calm determination that had carried him through many challenges. As he moved closer to the arranged meeting spot, he did so with the grace of a man who had practiced careful steps over years of experience. Queen Silnara, dressed in regal attire that spoke of her long lineage and the power of her empire, regarded him with a mixture of skepticism and intrigue. When they finally stood face to face, the silence between them was filled with the unspoken weight of their responsibilities. The Queen's voice, calm and firm, broke the silence. "Captain Elias Voss, I have heard many stories of your deeds on Teranova. Tell me, what drives you to resist? Is it loyalty, pride, or perhaps something deeper?" Elias took a slow breath before replying. His voice was soft but clear. "Your Majesty, I do not fight out of pride, nor out of blind loyalty. I fight because I believe in the right of every being to choose their own path. My people have known struggle, and we have always hoped for a future where we can live free from fear. I fight to protect that hope, to keep the light of freedom alive even in the darkest times." The Queen listened carefully. She had expected fiery declarations or lofty rhetoric, but here was a man who spoke simply, with the truth of his heart shining through every word. "I have long dismissed the tales of human warriors as mere legends," she admitted. "But seeing you here, standing alone against the might of my empire, I cannot help but wonder if there is more to these stories than I ever imagined." Elias's eyes widened slightly at the admission. "Legends often have roots in truth, Your Majesty. They start as a single spark that grows into a flame. My actions are but one spark in what I hope will become a greater change for my people. I do not claim to be a hero. I am simply a man who cares for others and cannot stand by while injustice is done." The conversation continued, each word carefully measured by both sides. The Queen asked, "If you wish to change your fate, why not join me? Together, we could build an empire where strength is used to uplift and unite rather than to subjugate. I see a determination in you that I have rarely seen before. Tell me, do you have no desire for peace?" Elias paused, considering her words. His reply was gentle yet resolute. "Peace is a noble goal, but it must be earned by those who live it. I have seen too many who promise peace and deliver only more suffering. My people have been promised an end to their troubles for many years, yet their lives remain hard and filled with uncertainty. I cannot accept a peace that comes at the cost of our freedom." Queen Silnara nodded slowly. Her eyes searched his face, as if looking for any sign of deceit or hidden ambition. "I understand the pain of loss and the burden of hope," she said quietly. "I too have seen my people suffer, but I have always believed that order and strength can bring stability to a chaotic universe. Tell me, Captain, how do you propose we resolve this conflict without endless strife?" Elias considered the question. "There is no simple answer to a conflict born of fear and pride," he replied. "But I believe that true strength lies not in overwhelming force, but in the willingness to listen and learn. If we can find common ground, then perhaps we can create a future that respects both power and the right to be free. I do not ask for leniency for my people. I ask for a fair chance at a better life." The dialogue between them took on a quiet rhythm, each statement building a bridge between two very different worlds. The Queen was struck by the clarity of his thoughts and the genuine care in his voice. For a moment, she saw in him not an enemy to be defeated, but a kindred spirit driven by the same need for a meaningful existence. This thought unsettled her deeply. How could two such different souls share the same desire for a better world? After a long pause, the Queen spoke again, her tone softening. "I have always believed in the power of might to control fate. Yet your words make me wonder if perhaps the true power lies in the courage to fight for what is right. I see in you a spirit that challenges not just my armies but my own beliefs. Perhaps this meeting is not merely a conversation between foes, but a chance for both of us to learn. Elias bowed his head slightly in respect. Your Majesty, if this conversation can be the first step towards understanding, then I am willing to walk that path. I ask only that you listen to the voices of those who suffer under the weight of oppression. True power is not measured by the strength of one's armies, but by the compassion one shows to those in need. The meeting stretched on as both leaders exchanged thoughts and ideas. The atmosphere in the clearing shifted from one of confrontation to a careful exploration of possibilities. Their conversation, filled with honesty and mutual curiosity, revealed that even in the midst of conflict, there was room for dialogue and understanding. In that quiet clearing, under the gentle glow of a setting sun, a tentative truce seemed to emerge. Although they stood on opposite sides of a deep divide, Queen Silnera and Captain Elias Voss discovered that both could agree on one essential truth. A future built solely on force and fear was one doomed to fail. They both envisioned a future where differences could be settled through understanding and shared strength. As the meeting came to a close, each leader left with much to ponder. The Queen returned to her command center with a mind stirred by new ideas, while Elias made his way back to his people, his heart filled with cautious hope. The conversation had not ended the conflict, but it had opened a small window of possibility, a chance for both sides to see beyond their own limits and consider the value of unity in a divided universe. In the days that followed, whispers of the meeting spread among soldiers and civilians alike. They spoke of a time when enemies sat together to talk, when strength was redefined not by conquest, but by the willingness to understand and respect the needs of others. This simple yet profound dialogue between Queen Silnera and Captain Elias Voss became a seed from which future change might one day grow. Queen Silnera sat alone in her private chamber, staring at a large holographic display that showed the latest reports from Teranova. The blue and green planet, once seen as a simple dot on a star map, now seemed full of hidden life and unexpected resistance. For years, she had trusted her empire's might and the power of advanced technology. Yet the reports of one human warrior, Captain Elias Voss, and the growing resilience of the people on Teranova had begun to challenge her beliefs. At first, the Queen had dismissed the tales of the human warrior as mere legends meant to inspire oppressed beings. But now, with each detailed account of clever traps and silent victories against her soldiers, a seed of doubt sprouted in her mind. She recalled the meeting with Captain Elias Voss. His simple yet determined words and the calm passion in his voice had left a lasting impression on her. The warrior had spoken of freedom, hope, and the right to choose one's own path. Those ideas were different from the usual commands of strength and order that she had always trusted. As she studied the reports and listened to the recorded accounts from her commanders, Silnera began to see a pattern. The human resistance was not chaotic or disorganized. Instead, it was guided by careful planning, deep knowledge of the land, and an unyielding belief in a better future. The more she learned about the tactics used by Captain Voss, the more she wondered if her empire's way of imposing order was truly the best path forward. In the quiet of the evening, the Queen walked slowly through the palace gardens. The soft rustling of leaves and the gentle chirping of alien birds accompanied her thoughtful steps. The garden, usually a place of calm reflection, now seemed to whisper lessons of change. The ancient trees, their trunks wide and steady, stood as silent witnesses to centuries of the empire's power. Yet even they could not hide the marks of time and the shifts in nature that signaled inevitable change. Silnera recalled how her ancestors had built the empire with an iron fist, relying on technology and force to maintain control. But as she pondered the stories coming from Teranova, she felt that true strength might not be found in numbers or machines. Instead, it could lie in the determination of a single soul willing to stand up for what was right. The idea was both humbling and eye-opening. The Queen summoned her closest advisors once again. In a room lit by soft ambient lights and lined with maps and star charts, she spoke slowly, choosing her words with care. "I have always believed that order is achieved through power. But the events on Teranova and the words of Captain Voss make me question that belief. Our strength should not only come from our machines or our armies, but also from our wisdom and our ability to listen to those who suffer. Her voice carried a mix of authority and vulnerability that surprised even her most loyal generals. One advisor, a seasoned strategist, replied, "Your Majesty, the reports do show that our soldiers are facing unexpected challenges. We are not accustomed to fighting an enemy who uses the land itself as a shield. It is true that Captain Voss has turned our own strategies against us." Another advisor added, "Perhaps it is time we rethink our methods. We have relied on our power for so long that we have forgotten that true control may come from understanding the people we govern." As the advisors discussed the events on Teranova, Silnera's mind drifted back to her encounter with Captain Voss. His simple plea for a fair chance at a better life echoed in her heart. She remembered how he had spoken not with arrogance, but with deep care for his people. In that moment, the Queen felt a stirring of compassion, a recognition that there might be a better way than ruling solely through strength and fear. The more she reflected, the clearer it became that the Empire's future might depend on its ability to evolve. If one human, with so little compared to the might of her armies, could create hope and spark resistance, then the foundation of her empire was at risk. Not because of the human warrior alone, but because of the ideas he represented. Ideas of freedom, self-determination, and compassion. Ideas that could unite many people under a banner of hope rather than fear. That night, as the palace grew quiet and the stars shone brightly above, Queen Silnera sat by a large window. The cool night air and the gentle glow of distant galaxies reminded her that the universe was vast and full of mysteries. She looked out at the dark sky and silently vowed that she would not let her empire become blind to change. She would learn from this unexpected challenge. Perhaps it was time to bridge the gap between might and mercy. Over the next several days, the Queen began to take small but significant steps toward a new way of thinking. She ordered a detailed review of the strategies used on Teranova and invited experts from different parts of the empire to share their insights. She even sent messages to local governors, asking them to listen more closely to the voices of their people. In her heart, Silnera hoped that by understanding the true needs and wishes of her subjects, the empire could grow stronger and more just. In private moments, she often revisited the memory of her conversation with Captain Voss. His words had planted a seed of change that was now growing slowly. It was a reminder that power was not absolute, and that every soul, no matter how small, could challenge even the mightiest force if driven by hope. Queen Silnera began to see that the resistance on Teranova was not merely a threat to her rule. It was a message that the empire must adapt or risk becoming a relic of a past era. By the time the next fleet was prepared to leave the palace for Teranova, the Queen's resolve had hardened into a new purpose. She would no longer simply crush resistance with overwhelming force. Instead, she decided to learn more about the people she ruled, to listen to their stories, and to consider new ideas for governance. This was a quiet revolution of thought, one that promised to change the empire from within. In the final hours before the fleet's departure, Queen Silnera looked once more at the holographic map of Teranova. The small blue and green world now glowed with the light of countless lives and dreams. It was a world where hope had been kindled by the courage of one man and by the collective spirit of a people longing for change. In that moment, she realized that true strength lay not in imposing order, but in nurturing a society where every being could find a voice. With a calm determination, the Queen sent her final orders to the fleet. She would see the struggle on Teranova not as a challenge to her empire, but as an opportunity to understand and grow. And deep in her heart, Queen Silnera knew that this new way of thinking would shape the future of her people for generations to come. The final light of day slowly faded on Teranova, and with it, the clash of armies grew quiet. The alien forces, led by Queen Silnera's once unshakable command, began to withdraw from the battlefield. Their high-tech machines and disciplined ranks now seemed less a sign of strength and more a reminder of battles lost in unexpected ways. Amid the soft hum of retreating troops and the rustle of wind in the trees, a quiet truth emerged, a truth that would forever change the way the Empire viewed the legends of old. Captain Elias Voss, the human warrior whose clever tactics had turned the tide of small skirmishes, stood alone on a gentle rise overlooking the hidden valley. In that valley, human settlers worked to rebuild what had been shaken by the conflict. Their faces showed relief and a new sense of hope. They had suffered under the weight of an empire that had assumed complete control, and now, with each small victory, their spirit grew stronger. Elias looked at the settlement with a sense of calm pride, knowing that his careful planning and brave actions had given his people the chance to believe in a brighter future. Back at the palace, Queen Silnera watched the scenes from a large window in her private study. The holographic images of Teranova's rugged landscapes and the distant glow of human fires filled her vision. For many years, she had dismissed the stories of human warriors as mere myths and legends, tales to boost the morale of the downtrodden. But now, as she saw the lasting impact of Captain Voss's actions, she realized that these legends held a truth that could not be ignored. In her heart, the queen felt a mix of regret and admiration. She had once been certain that power and technology would always ensure victory. Yet the resilience of one human, who had not fought for fame or glory, but simply to protect his people, had shown her that strength came in many forms. It was a strength built on love for one's land, on wisdom born of hardship, and on the courage to stand up for what is right. This was a power that no machine or army could ever replicate. The queen summoned her most trusted generals and advisors in a quiet chamber deep within the palace. Their faces, lined with worry and the strain of recent setbacks, looked to her for direction. "Our forces have been forced to retreat from Teranova," she began softly, her voice echoing in the still room. "But this retreat is not only a sign of our loss, it is a lesson in our limitations. We have learned that numbers and technology can be challenged by a single determined soul. We have seen that legends are born from truth, and our enemy has shown us that our own strength may be more fragile than we believed." The generals listened in silence, understanding the weight of her words. It was rare for a ruler as mighty as Queen Silnera to admit that her long-held beliefs might need to change. Yet in that moment, her honesty and willingness to learn from defeat inspired a slow but steady change in the hearts of those who served her. The queen ordered a careful review of all recent engagements on Teranova, not to punish those who had lost, but to understand what had allowed a single human to challenge the empire's grand design. Meanwhile, far from the cold halls of the palace, Captain Elias Voss moved through his own gathering of people. In a small village near the forest's edge, families worked together to repair damaged homes and replant gardens that had been disturbed by the conflict. Children played in the soft dirt, their laughter a gentle counterpoint to the memory of struggle. Elders shared simple stories of bravery and hope, stories that would soon become the new legends of Teranova. In every corner of the settlement, the human spirit was visible, a spirit that had grown stronger under the guidance of one man who had risked everything for his people. The news of Queen Silnera's reflective address and her willingness to learn spread quietly among the human communities. The settlers and fighters alike began to see the once mighty alien queen in a new light. They understood that even those in power could change when they faced truths they had long ignored. For many, Captain Elias Voss was not just a lone warrior. He had become a symbol of the indomitable human will, a living reminder that even the smallest spark could ignite a lasting flame of freedom. On Teranova, the battlefield itself began to heal. The marks left by the conflict were slowly erased by nature as new life emerged in its place. Wildflowers pushed through the cracked earth, and small animals returned to the once quiet fields. In these gentle moments of regrowth, the people found hope and comfort. They knew that the struggle was not over, but that each day offered a chance to build something better, a chance to confirm that legends were more than just stories of the past. In the days that followed, Queen Silnera took the bold step of visiting Teranova herself. With a small escort and under a strict peace protocol, She arrived on the planet in a diplomatic mission, aimed at learning more about its people and their culture. The Queen walked along the rebuilt streets of the human settlements, speaking with local leaders and listening to their stories. She saw the simple homes, the shared meals, and the common joys of a people who had suffered much yet still celebrated life. The Queen's visit was met with cautious hope, and while many remained wary of the alien ruler, the warmth of genuine dialogue began to melt the old barriers of fear and distrust. At the heart of her visit was a final meeting with Captain Elias Voss, in a humble hall within a community center, far from the grand palaces of her own world. The Queen and the human warrior sat together. Their conversation was gentle and earnest, with no talk of conquest or victory. Instead, they spoke of lessons learned, of the importance of listening, and of the need to create a future where strength was measured by compassion rather than might. For Queen Silnera, this meeting confirmed what she had begun to realize during the conflict. The legend of the human warrior was real, and it carried with it a promise that even in the face of overwhelming power, the human spirit could rise and bring about change. As she departed Teranova, the Queen carried with her a new vision for her empire. It was a vision of unity and growth, where the voices of all were heard and every being had a chance to thrive. In the end, the battle on Teranova was not a defeat but a turning point. It was a moment when the long-held myths about human weakness were replaced by the undeniable truth of resilience. Captain Elias Voss, the lone warrior who had stood against an empire, had become a legend confirmed, a symbol of hope for a future where strength came from within and where every life mattered. And in that quiet truth, both the human people and the alien empire found a way to move forward into a new era of understanding and respect.